What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 12 of the Overview. I'm ChanManV. FishStix here, Shayed here, as always. And then we've got I think you were our first guest, right, Sam? Our very first guest on the Overview?
I believe so. That
Yes.
was quite a while ago, though.
We've got our very first guest back with us, Mr. oPlaiD. He's a Daily Dot writer. He's also a player. He's played on some of the professional teams too. And are you playing for a team right now or no?
I am not playing for team right now.
Yeah, so he's got a great player here that you can pick up too if you do teams out there looking for a good player. But welcome to the show, buddy. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here. Talk some Overwatch.
Yes. So how's everybody doing? FishStix, how's your week been, man?
It's been going all right. We've had plenty of competitive Overwatch to spectate lately. Had the chance to commentate very last minute impromptu. I thought I was finally going to go a weekend without commentating anything, but then ZP hit me up like a day or two before and ended up casting the Gamers Origin tournament on Sunday with the 1 hero limit. Actually had some of the best games ever in any tournament I've ever casted. It was a ton of fun to watch, ton of fun to cast, and a lot of lively discussions this week in the community that I'm looking forward to jumping into.
Yeah, absolutely. Shayed, how about you? How's your week been? Playing any DPS? Playing any DPS characters lately?
Actually, I played Bastion this morning.
Okay.
That was pretty fun.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Only thing that ratched me was the Tracer, so shocker. But yeah, going good otherwise.
Okay, good. Well, guys, we've got lots to talk about. Ben was alluding to a lot of news being talked about. Jeff Kaplan came out with a developers update that had some details, particularly about when beta's ending and just a little bit of the schedule, just moving towards launch. Going to talk about, I guess, wish lists, what we'd like to see in terms of competitive formats and modes and that kind of stuff, just because it kind of ties into a lot of things I think we've been experiencing with the competitive mode. And then some news, teams disbanding. Actually, lots of free agents floating everywhere right now. So we're seeing tryouts.
Not so free.
Or not so free, too, yeah. Talk a little bit about that. And then esports recap, couple events. One that happened this weekend that FishStix mentioned, the Gamers Origin Overwatch Cup. And then Kings of the Beta. I don't know why I wrote beta. Beta is it concluding? It's concluding the next 3 days, right? I believe. So it's going to be ending this week.
Well, kind of.
Is it?
The Overkill one?
Is it just
the
EU?
playoffs
Is it just
finals. No, the playoffs and finals are on the 7th and 8th of May.
Oh, okay. So this is like the second round of groups, basically.
They're risking it during an open beta when the servers are like crashing and not working.
Oh, man. It couldn't have been as painful as the first week, last week, whenever they were having all those issues, too. So we'll see how it goes. Hopefully this week will be smooth though. So check that out for sure. We'll talk about that. And viewer Q&A, as always, tweet your questions to, just tweet them to me at ChanManV, and I'll try to read as many as I can at the end of the show. Okay, so let's talk about Jeff Kaplan's developer update that they released yesterday. Announced the end of the beta, which is going to be, or at least the closed beta, which is going to be next week. Then he mentioned the open beta is going to start May 3rd for folks that had the pre-order, May 5th through 9th for everybody else. And then there's just going to be a break until launch, on the May 24th, right? Okay, so let's talk about, I guess, the ending of the closed beta. What are your thoughts, I guess, on that? And just I guess one more week, and then we see another week break. What do you think, FishStix?
It's rough. A lot of people, as soon as they saw this, are going, oh, God, what am I going to do with my time? I mean, we've talked about it time and time again on the show. So many of the players right now are playing this game like it's a full-time job. I play 1 or 2 hours every single night when I get home from work. So the fact that it's going away, it makes everyone really sad and scared. What are we going to do? I don't know. Last time the beta went down, a lot of us were just twiddling our thumbs, desperately trying to find another game to play. So it's going to be that situation again. And that sucks for us who are obsessed with the game. But, if Blizzard can take the time to really work on things like competitive, updating the competitive mode, perhaps, or, just fixing some of the crashing issues we've been seeing, then it'll all be worth it once we head into the open beta, which is happening immediately after the downtime. So, I mean, not too much to say about it. We're all going to be sad when it's down, but as long as they can improve things, improve stability, it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I think the stress test kind of shows that they definitely need to work on that when they're expecting, whatever they had 7 million players are signed up for the beta, and you expect there's going to be a lot of sales at launch, right? So they definitely have some work to do there to make sure the game's going to be able to run properly when the game comes out.
Yeah, I mean, you alluded to this past weekend, right? And having just just open weekend betas, but it's not purely open. They just invite a lot of people. We did see a lot of error joining games, right? I don't know about you guys, but I saw a lot of that, and even the queue times were surprisingly high for me. What were your experiences this weekend, Shayed?
Overall, it wasn't terrible. I think probably the most annoying thing was just that there was 3 maps over and over again.
Yeah.
So if you play as much as I do, it's like, oh, Hanamura for the 6th time in a row. I love this map. Yay, Hanamura. But other than that, I mean, the crashes were kind of annoying.
Yeah.
I found for the most part that if I just restarted, it wasn't that terrible. I know everyone else probably had different experiences, but
I actually didn't
overall
have
it wasn't
crashes.
terrible for me.
I didn't have crashes, actually. It just took a little bit of time getting games started.
The thing that I had the most problem with was...
And the games dropped out every time we got in the game. You play one half and the second half it would just drop out. I didn't try to play that long though. I was only on there for an hour or two each day, but
yeah.
The thing that I found was the most frequent as far as bugs or crashes or whatever is concerned was finishing a game would most of the time take me to just a black screen, and then I'd have to restart or leave party or something like that. So yeah.
I didn't
that
have
happened to me
that
quite a
bad
bit.
of experience. Wow. Okay. That's definitely not good. I mean, the overall when I just playing with actually my nephew got it, and just a lot of people that were wanting to get it for a long time that never played the game got it this weekend. So I was playing with a lot of newer players, and I mean, generally they were really excited about it. I mean, obviously we saw lots of Bastion on attacks and things like that. That's always can be difficult to play with, especially with new players. But at least the experience, I think, for a lot of the new players seemed to be pretty good overall. Yeah. Yeah,
very good. I mean, you saw all kinds of posts on Reddit. Obviously, this game is a really, really fun game to play. It's very unique, and everyone getting their chance to play it for the first time seemed to enjoy it for the most part. Of course, there were those threads that are like, who else isn't going to buy this game? But, there's always going to be those people.
I feel like the experience really depends on if you're actually playing with other people or not. I think if you came into this and you were playing solo, you probably didn't enjoy it that much because it's a really difficult game to do that in. There's so many factors, there's so many things that can go wrong in a game. And I think with the attack defend game modes, it's often not fun if your team is losing because you're just wiping over and over. And then maybe even you cap the point, but you just wipe 5 times in a row. So it's well, I don't know if I'm, doing anything. So right. I don't know. I feel like the burden of teamwork that's required to play the game properly in any way makes it very difficult for new people coming in, unless they're playing with friends.
Well, I don't think it's that bad. I mean, obviously, if everybody comes in on day one, they literally have never played the game, then yeah, that first moment is or that first game is definitely a lot of confusion and things like that. But generally, I think if the voice line, so this is something I was going to bring up in wishlist, but the voice line, I feel like people just aren't using it enough. When you're solo queuing and dual queuing, maybe 1 or 2 people talk, but I don't, I think they were intending for a lot more people to be talking, when you're random games, just talk a lot more. I don't feel like it's happening right now. And I feel like it might have something to do with the UI. Sometimes you're in group chat and you don't even, group line, you don't even know. Sometimes you're in team lines and you don't know. And, and, I don't know, that's something that they should probably think about too. Because this week was a perfect example. Why aren't people talking to each other? There's a ton of random people right now. And I literally would have one guy saying something. Granted, I don't say a ton either, so I'm a culprit of all this too. But I don't know. It's
Dude, I'm that tryhard who's guys, we gotta sing together. Why are you going? Three people are dead. Just wait for the spot. Come on, guys. That's me.
You're probably just why are you Widow? Don't go Widow. What are you doing?
No, I'm not,
That's what you do in the
Oh
game.
gosh,
I am the guy that tries to get us to sing together for pushes at least, though.
Yeah.
I wish the chat wheel was a little bit more accessible, because like
Mhm.
pushing C and then kind of having to like scroll around to whatever you want to get to
Mhm.
is a little bit awkward sometimes. So I find myself like just actually key binding everything that would like I would have to normally scroll the wheel for anyways.
Mm.
So that makes things a little bit easier, but it takes
Okay.
up key binds obviously, so that's kind of
Yeah, I
annoying.
don't
But
use the emotes that. So you use the emotes a lot in pub games, like just.
like, yeah, I like the group up with me, or like I need
Mhm.
healing. Well, I don't usually have to use that one.
You're the healer, so you don't need healing. What are you talking about? Okay. Yeah, so I don't know.
They're nice sometimes.
It's nice having the voice line. Like, it's great. It's just, I feel like it needs to be used more. And I think if it was, then Sam, like, that issue that you mentioned would probably be solved a bit more. Just having, like, even one pseudo experienced person in there can really help the direction of a group. Hopefully that will change soon.
Yeah, I mean, it would help some. Obviously, a lot of it's still just like the burden of knowledge. Like if you just put, 10 people into a League of Legends games who never played before, it'd be a shit show too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
but those games have had like years for people to develop, no knowledge of how to play the game, and like bronze players know how to play the game because they still have like these concepts of how to do it that have percolated down from the pro scene, basically. So
Yeah.
that doesn't exist in Overwatch, and I think if things like the competitive mode and stuff are popular, then that will inevitably happen. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, people have learned from the like MOBAs too, so inherently they have a little bit of knowledge of at least roles and things like that. But I remember my first times playing League of Legends. It took me weeks of playing League of Legends before I felt like I started having fun because the learning curve was just so crazy for that game.
You had fun playing League of Legends?
League is also like
for some time with friends, okay? With friends.
It's designed in a way that like makes you not want to play with friends though too, because like they have runes and stuff like that where like you queue into games and they have an advantage over you, like a physical advantage over you.
Yeah, true.
The enemy players have flash and runes and stuff, and it's like that's horrible. So I mean, League is almost worse in some ways in that regard.
Definitely. Okay, so open beta, just open beta is going to be a week long for, I guess, folks that have the pre-order too, and then release. So I had an interview with Jeff Goodman, and for those of you in this the OW or Overwatch Discord, know him as Zan in that chat. We did an interview with him, and we talked about just, I guess, what updates we can expect from now until launch, and he didn't rule out. He didn't say 100% no updates, but he pretty much alluded that there would be no updates, like balance-wise, right? And Jeff Kaplan kind of alluded to that too in the video, that there would be no balance. It'd be mostly like operational. It's going to be one of these days. I don't know what's going on.
It's your internet, dude.
Yeah,
you're dropping out of Discord at the same time the stream's going down.
Yeah, it's there's like AT&T wiring going on in my neighborhood, so maybe it has something to do with that. But we'll try to make do. Yeah, so did you say the spectator changes were going to happen before launch or right after launch in that video?
It wasn't specific when those were happening, but those were like the only specific things I think that Jeff Kaplan mentioned were like in the near pipeline.
Okay, yeah. But balance-wise,
I think what he was referring to was like after the game actually releases is when they're going to kind of, I guess, fall back on just going through patches that are more bug related or like spectator fixes, like ranked mode stuff. I think they're kind of going to shy away from doing a lot of the really intense nerfs and buffs and stuff that they've been doing the last like 2 months that open beta or closed beta has been back.
Yeah, so I guess we can't expect too many changes. So thoughts on that?
I'll say I'll be surprised if they launch the game with no balance changes. I know they said that, but just knowing that dev team, how quickly they work, the pace of balance updates that we've seen over the last couple of months, it's been on a weekly basis. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm going to be very surprised if probably when the open beta comes, there will be at least 1 or 2 balance changes. I'm just going to predict that.
Yeah, usually their like internal build is like a couple weeks or something ahead of whatever we're playing on live in terms of changes that have been made. So there's probably some things in there that they're already comfortable with that they're not going to iterate more on those, but that they will push at some point, I think. But
I think we talked about that. Was it last week? Or I think it might have just been in private conversation before the show or something where we talked about how someone from Blizzard had mentioned that their internal meta is like what our meta is now is what their internal meta was like 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Dan was talking a
obviously
little bit
things
about that.
change
Yeah.
like very like significantly over a long period of time for, balance changes and stuff like that.
Yeah. One thing that Zan did say is that, we talked a little bit about that internal meta and just how it kind of, paralleled a little bit. The Tracer meta never showed up internally over there, which is really surprising.
I mean, I don't think it's that surprising
Good for
because
them.
you have to have like a certain level of mechanical skill to make it work, and like they have some really great players on the dev and QA teams and stuff like that, but they're not on the level that a lot of the pro players are. I mean, like when we first went into the open beta session, the first couple of days we were getting destroyed by the best dev teams, but after like 2 or 3 days we were beating them, and they had much better understanding of the game at that point still, but we our individual skill was able to win the day basically. So I think that makes a pretty big difference in terms of something like Tracer becoming dominant, because even when the game was first beta session, even the start of the second beta session, Tracer wasn't popular. Like she was felt as a hero that didn't make enough of an impact to really be usable. She was just basically like a gnat, and you just swatted her or ignored her. Maybe you couldn't really counter her, but she wouldn't die, but she wouldn't impact the match enough to like let her team win. So you would just kind of push the cart and whatever. But obviously that things change.
Things change when you have 2 or 3 gnats like floating around and definitely picking at you. All right, so yeah, I mean, hopefully we will see a change. Otherwise, if we have events that don't have 1 hero limits, then we'll see a little bit more of what we saw at Onog, which I think for all of us was not it wasn't a good spectating experience. And I mean, from what I hear from you guys, it's just not a very fun experience to play just on a daily basis either.
Yeah, especially the Winstons. I actually don't mind the Tracers nearly as much as some other people do. Watching Tracer first person is still very exciting. It's kind of difficult to catch the action from above, but what's really difficult is when you have 2 Winstons on each side. That I don't like casting. I'll say that much.
I mean, playing against the Tracer is definitely super annoying. Like, I don't know. It allows a lot of classes. There's not much you can do. You kind of just have to wait.
It's not fun.
Yeah, it's not fun, basically.
I mean, does it put you in a situation where it's not even worth if it continues on and on and on, do you see a day where it's just like, let's just not play healing support at all? Because
for sure.
No.
I feel that way. I feel that way.
All right, let's talk this one out. This is interesting. Okay.
I mean, the healing is just like so powerful. Like, how would you not play healing support at all?
Because
like, what would you play?
Can't.
Another Tracer?
I get to the point in some of my games where there's like 4. I've actually had 4 to 5 Tracers on the other team, and I can't actually play support at that point.
So you're talking about in pubs or like in comp games? Because in comp games, you'd never.
No, I'm a casual player. Like, by all means, anything I say, take it with a grain of salt if you're only paying attention to competitive, because a lot of the things that I feel about the game come from like a casual player standpoint. So yeah, it's super, super, super annoying to go against 4 Tracers or 5 Tracers and not feel like you're literally able to do anything at all. I can't even make it out of my spawn. Can't do anything. It's impossible. So there is times when that happens where I actually feel like, why am I even playing support? I could actually just go play DPS. I probably won't be able to survive at like much longer than I already am because of my potato aim, but I mean, at least it would be better, and I could probably make it out of my spawn.
Just play 76. It's like a mix between both.
I'll just right-click them to death. That's all I gotta do. Actually, more often than not, I just find myself playing Winston because I just drop shield and then left-click and they all die, so...
So, Sam, you can't see that happening, though, right?
Definitely not. I mean, if you look at the current meta, like, Tracer's not even, like, that dominant other than maybe on the Koth maps right now, right? Like, most of the... payload maps, people are playing other things right now after, the last batch of changes. I mean, obviously she's still used a lot of the time, and she's still, used to defend last points and stuff like that, people stack her and things like that. But, we're seeing, I think, a really good variety of classes other than maybe on King of the Hill. So,
I mean, there's, even on payload maps, I see Double Tracer a lot. Like, it's not necessarily something that's just Koth, although Koth is definitely where I feel it the most, like the most painfully. But with the fact that like it's so easy for both teams to push the payload, at least in my games, I find that like basically I was saying this to ChanManV yesterday. I think 75 to 85% of my losses in ranked usually come from my team pushing and doing well and getting all the way to the end checkpoint, and then the other team pushing, getting held overtime on every single checkpoint, but still getting to the end, and then us being forced into Koth and losing Koth.
Yeah. Isn't that
so
fun?
That's like
Doesn't that feel really rewarding?
Come on, guys, just get better at Koth. Like, please.
Legitimately, 75 to 85% of my losses in ranked are that.
Yeah.
And it's not even because like, oh, they played better than us on Koth. It's literally just one person on my team probably didn't want to play the stinky cheese. So we lost because it's like, oh, 4 Tracers, 2 Lucios. What do we even do versus that at this point? Like,
yeah, I mean, so we're bleeding a little bit into our competitive mode discussion, which I guess we'll talk about here. But just to wrap up, I guess meta, just the Tracer meta. It sounds like, at least from casual pubs or even just high level casual pubs, because I'm lower level than like you, Shayed, and I don't see like an enormous amount of Tracers. Definitely Tracer in every game, but not necessarily like 3 or anything crazy like that. But it sounds like it is mostly just a pub thing versus high level, at least non King of the Hill.
Well, it's like you go up ranked against like Surefour, Reaver, Adam, and whoever else. It's like, they're definitely going to play Tracers on Koth, so peace.
Yeah.
Bye, ranked points.
It sounded like, too, when we were talking to Zan last night, that he wants to approach, at least, it sounds like this one particularly, from the standpoint of maybe buffing up everybody else instead of nerfing Tracer. And he, I think, gave a more general comment about he doesn't want to just keep nerfing because like eventually the characters just won't be powerful anymore, right?
They nerf like every single support multiple times because of these comps almost. It's like, I don't know.
But they won't nerf Tracer.
Yeah.
Tracer's untouchable. she's the mascot for Overwatch, man.
Well, it was a little ironic that she was the mascot for a long time and she was never played in comp games.
I know, that was pretty funny.
And now she's just like completely broken, like 1 clipping 200 HP heroes, 2 clipping tanks, and it's like, oh no, we're just gonna buff everything else, but we'll leave her the way that she is. It's totally fine.
I mean, the thing is, it's hard to deal with her even if you buff other things, unless you like give them more health or something, because like, how do you buff other things that make them better than her?
He referenced like Roadhog pulling closer, just on his pulls. Another thing was McCree on his stun. It stuns for a little bit longer, but he's not able to shoot like right click as fast. Like soloing wise, it's about the same. But your teammates can come help a little bit more, in case of a stun. So very minor.
Still a really
things.
Weird buff.
Very minor.
He's like one of the most popular DPS still.
Yeah, I know. He's like.
Hey, I don't mind it. It encourages team play. It's a buff that assists the team play aspect. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, these are very subtle changes.
Yep.
What I think really makes the most sense is just, I actually almost literally think 1 or 2 seconds more of cooldown for her blinks. That alone could be enough to balance Tracer. Because why is she so difficult to deal with? It's because of her blinks and her recall. So maybe recall 1 or 2 seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds, and literally 1 or 2, like it's only a 3-second cooldown on the blink. So if you brought it up to 4 or 5 seconds, that would be almost doubling the amount of cooldown. I guess.
Well, she has like an incredible amount of up time because she doesn't actually have to really leave the fight almost ever because her cooldowns.
I mean, there's literally an achievement
fast
in the game for recalling 400 HP without dying. Like that's an achievement in the game for Tracer.
I do that every life, basically, as Tracer.
I know, it's like
that's
I
an
played
easy
Tracer
one.
once and I got that achievement and I was like, oh, okay.
That's
I didn't
really
realize
crazy.
it did that.
No, but
like, I don't know. From the conversations that I've had with people, like members of the team and stuff like that, the general consensus was they didn't actually want her mobility to be nerfed because that's like who Tracer is. She's an extremely mobile mosquito. But so like, I don't know, maybe lowering her damage a little bit so she can't like one clip someone, or maybe lowering her clip size So
I can
she
see
has
lowering her
more
clip
of a
size or
reload
like
time.
increasing her reload time or something like that.
That's a
So
good
then
point.
she
Yeah.
can get one clip off, but she's more vulnerable before getting the second clip off. But
'Cause
even then,
it's
it's a little
like-
frustrating because she can easily like one clip melee a lot of low health characters, which is kind of
I
frustrating
don't
when
know.
she
It's
comes
just
in
like
from behind
her
and you have no chance
mobility
to
is what
react to it.
makes her mobility is what makes Tracer. Like, she's the blinking mosquito, and if you take away some of that mobility, then
That's a
I
good
don't know.
idea.
It
Yeah,
just seems a little weird.
I think that's a good
Take
argument.
away a
yeah.
core aspect of a character, as opposed to just maybe nerfing their damage a little bit. Her mid-range damage is
The,
ridiculous.
The interesting
It's not
thing
have to
about
be that
nerfing her
high.
damage would be that armor would be like even more effective against her. But I'm not sure who would really take that much advantage of it.
Torbs everywhere. Fish, you were gonna say something?
Oh no, I mean, I that could work. It's all theory crafting at this point.
Yeah.
But I don't think adding a slight longer cooldown on blinks really changes the core character. She'll still have insane mobility. She'll still be able to blink from one side of one part of the map, from one choke point into a door on the side, and then continue the flank that way. So I don't think it really changes too much. But yeah, I mean, if you nerfed her attack ability too much, then she would never be able to 1v1 like a Genji or a Reaper or anything like that, which I don't think is the right move personally. I think I like the blink nerf because it would put her in this position where she just has to think a little bit more about every attack, be a little bit more strategic, work a little bit more closely with her team. But anyway, it's all theory crafting. She definitely does need a tune-up. Or we'll just do one hero limits, one of the two.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, one
That's
hero
a big-
limits worked really well in the tournament over the weekend. Like, it was amazing.
It definitely did. No, it was definitely very entertaining to watch. And I'm not sure if it's just because relative to the Onog one, I think a lot of things would have been more entertaining to watch. But I think one hero limit definitely had a lot to do with it. Let's talk about competitive mode. So we touched on the format just a second ago. King of the Hill, like almost in every single competitive match now, just because attack has an advantage. Okay, so
on
why don't
that
you start,
regard,
Sam?
like I actually looked at statistics to see in tournaments like how often the attack side is winning. I think when we were talking to Jeff Goodman yesterday, he said something like internally it doesn't go to overtime that often.
Well, he said, okay, so his quote was that just given the stats, and he can look at different stats at different MMRs, right? Like the newer player, the super casual players, it's closer to 50-50. And with the elite players, the pro players, he said it's not like a 30% jump, like up to 80%, but it's definitely higher. So he didn't actually give specifics, but it didn't sound like it was crazy amounts higher. So I wouldn't say
Sam
70.
has the data?
The Kaplan quote
Yeah.
said that at the high MMRs was like 60% win rate. Like this was like a while back, right?
Okay.
Like he said that it was a sliding range around there, and that 60% would mean that about like 36% of matches would go to overtime, right? But it's like that seems way too high to me personally. I don't know if that seems high to you guys.
Yeah, I think
but
it's too high too.
When I looked at, I tallied up results from ONOG and then the semifinals and finals of all the GoSu EU tournaments since like the start of the beta that were actually posted, because some of them weren't posted on their site. And in rounds where a time had not been set, so not like the second round of a stopwatch where maybe a team could have finished but they didn't because the time ran out. 78% of those games the attacking team won.
Did you say 78?
78%, yeah.
Oh,
wow,
God.
that's high.
Okay,
So that means
close to
that like
80%.
60%,
close to
60% of matches in comp mode at that level would go to the cloth overtime then. So it's like a huge amount at the
78%.
highest levels. And and it's slightly skewed, I think, because King's Row is the most popular map, and King's Row is also the easiest map to full attack on, I think. But I mean, that doesn't change the numbers very much.
That's
okay.
high.
Thank you for
That's
that
very
data.
high.
I was gonna eventually do this myself, but no one else seemed to be doing it. But thank you, Sam, for pulling that, because
I mean, there's
that's
more data. I
extremely
didn't do the
important.
NA tournaments and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but I don't think that they would change the results that much. So
I
Yeah,
don't think so either.
I will say that when Jeff Kaplan was on the show 2 weeks ago and announced the new competitive mode and the new format, I was open to trying it, and I am still open to trying it. However, in the last couple of tournaments, even more than previous tournaments, we've been seeing the attacking team winning at such a high rate. I would have actually guessed in the 70 to 80% range, so that makes a lot of sense to hear that from you. And to me, that's just way too high. Even if it was 60 to 65% win rates for the attacking team, I still think that's too high, because it just means that the vast majority of games are going to be decided by a best of one king of the hill, which is really not where we want to be. So
it's miserable. It's the worst thing ever.
One thing I've heard from the Blizzard employees, and they said this, I think, on the show last night, I think even Kaplan might have said it in our interview, they might try to come up with like some Band-Aid fix and, you know, tweak the times on maps for the competitive scene, like have a competitive mode where you have less time to complete the map or something like that.
Yeah, that could kind of work, but it's going to be something like there's always going to be a sliding scale. Like maybe teams get even better at attacking or something, and like there's still issues, and that's not a great solution.
It's a Band-Aid.
You know what
it's
fixes
exactly
all
a Band-Aid.
You know, there's other things they could do that would be improvements, like you know, respawns after capturing checkpoints, so defending teams can defend better and like have more opportunity before getting snowballed. But it's still just like there's going to be major issues with that just because of the game mode and less.
Well, I mean, are these stats that you collected? These stats you collected are for all the maps, right? Not just payload, for double capture points too, right? The 78% that you said.
Well, I mean, there's like no games on the double capture points.
Yeah. Okay.
This was just for. I think I collected just payloads. I'm just talking just payload, not double capture points.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Stopwatch.
Stopwatch. Okay.
Yep.
I mean, there's been hybrids, right? That have been like people have been talking about, obviously in the pro community and even just Reddit. And at this point, I think almost any hybrid would work. At this point, I mean, anything.
So why not just have stopwatch? Why?
I mean, I think we just need to actually run a tournament with the current system of ranked as the format for that tournament, and just show Blizzard that no one likes it. Because
I think the reason
right now, all they see is ranked, and all they see is people on the forums being like, "Oh yeah, this is so much better than stopwatch," but like, it's not.
The reasoning behind the stopwatch thing is that, you know, the way that these games are designed, you know, from the standpoint of, you know, there's a finish, we're trying to get to the finish, we're trying to get to the objective. There's a finality to it, right? It's kind of like, I don't know, CSGO, whether you like set off the bomb or not, you know, that's a type of feeling to it. And if you don't, then you lose, right? And you die, you lose, and so does your
But there's actually there's a finality to stopwatch too. They just have to do it the right way, and the right way to do it is the attacking team sets a time, and then when you switch, the time at the top of your screen where normal like countdown to checkpoint is would be a countdown to how long you have to reach as far as the other team reached, and they can do the same thing that they do now. Whenever the timer starts getting like lower and lower, the music kind of dramatically changes, and like there's beeping noises that happen. Like there's a finality to that, and then the defeat screen, if the timer counts all the way down to 0, the defeat screen pops up just as it does now. If you do not reach the end of the map or whatever it is by the end of the countdown, the defeat screen pops up. You don't see the end of that map. It's already happening.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's other things you could do to make it better too in the UI.
Yeah,
you could add like a ghost cart.
Like,
that
already happens.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I mean, I think the UI is a major issue. Like, you could add a ghost cart that shows you like the time the enemy set, so you could kind of try and race it. You could add a line that shows you where you're mathematically eliminated and the game ends if you know you fall behind that point or something like that. So then you do know when that happens. And I mean, like, obviously, people say that there's unsatisfying results because the team wins a round in 3 minutes or something, and then there's no way the other team can come back. But like, if the hockey team scores 10 goals in the first half, there's no way the other team can come back. And the second half is, the second and third period are just going to be pointless. And you don't, if a team is up 10-0 and then the other team scores 1 goal and wins the third period 1-0 or whatever, you don't go to a shootout to like decide the winner in that time or go to overtime or whatever. Like, that would just be BS, and that's like what it feels like in comp mode right now. It feels like if you completely outplay the opponent, it doesn't matter. It makes most of the match feel meaningless, basically, because it all comes down to the overtime, and that's like way less. People talk about a stopwatch as anticlimactic, and I feel like that's way less climactic. If that was really a thing than stopwatches, because most of the match is basically pointless.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just like.
Please go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Please.
Shayed, you go and then
Perfect
Fish after.
The perfect example that I have of this is it was either yesterday or the day before. ChanMan saw the game live as it was happening. It was
It's on Brandon's
myself,
stream,
I
and
think
yeah.
Milo, Seagull, I think someone else was in it with us too. I think we were like 4 stacked, and we were against like
Pure
Slasher and a few other people.
yeah.
Pure, yeah.
Mm.
And basically what happened was we ended up pushing. We were on King Zero. We pushed the entire map, basically without hitting any overtime on any checkpoints. We had a pretty good time. It was probably like 5 minutes or so, 6 minutes maybe. And then we swapped sides, so we were defending, and they started their attack. They hit overtime on every single checkpoint. So the original capture of the payload, they hit overtime. The second checkpoint, they hit overtime. Every single one of them. And they even had overtime pushing at the end, like to actually cap out the map.
Yeah.
And it was like 20 to 30 seconds of overtime each time. But we still ended up going to Koth. And when we got to Koth, they ended up running Stinky Cheese. And our team ran as much Stinky Cheese as we could, but we had a couple puffers that didn't think that they wanted to do Stinky Cheese and they wanted to do Junkrat instead. So we ended up losing Koth. But our time on King's Row attack was probably like 3 to 4 minutes better than theirs. Yeah. And we still ended up losing that ranked game. And that has tilted to me more than I have ever been tilted in my entire life.
Some people would say it was exciting because they're in overtime every round or whatever, you know, and you
it
guys
was not exciting.
Make
it was
the one play you needed to stop them, right?
Well, it was exciting, but if you compare it to like the other team's run, it wasn't even close, right? There was no overtime in that run, so it's just kind of. It's just one
and
of these
not to mention
things.
in the
it just means playing well doesn't matter. Like playing well doesn't matter. It's like why even play well?
All right, so FishStix
doesn't matter until you reach the Koth.
You want to comment a little bit before I actually?
Well, I mean, this is an incredibly deep topic, and I could seriously talk about this for another 30 minutes. We've gone back and forth about this many times in Discord and talk shows with Jeff Kaplan himself. We've talked about it left, right, and center. But the fact that we are seeing these top teams complete maps at such a high rate does make a lot of us in the scene feel kind of nervous about using this mode for tournaments. I do agree with Shayed. We should try it. We should do it just to see what it's like, just to see what it feels like. Yeah. But I also think that there are some decent alternatives. If you try to strip down why Blizzard wants to do something other than stopwatch, the common responses are anticlimactic. If a team sets a time of 7 minutes and 20 seconds or whatever, and the other team gets stuck on the first objective for 3 minutes, second objective for 3 minutes, they basically can't complete the map, so they basically have to GG at that point, and there's some garbage time. I don't actually really buy that this is in itself anticlimactic. I agree with Sam that the right UI elements could tell the story
that's
clearly.
My big problem is like it's a complete cop out on Blizzard's end when they basically come in and they're like, okay, well let the community help us figure out how to do esports, how to do all these things in the game, and then they're just like, okay, we're not going to implement a UI for stopwatch, so screw stopwatch. It's going to be a horrible spectator experience for everyone, even though everyone wants it, because we're not going to implement a UI for it. So it's just basically dead on arrival, period, because it is always going to be awkward in game without that aspect. So I feel like it's just a complete cop-out by them to not implement that when, that's been something that lots of people have been clamoring for. And then they're going to say, oh, we have these problems with it, but, they have things that could potentially be a solution to many of those problems if they just implemented, proper UI for it. And they never tried it. They never put one in live. I mean, I know they said something about having something internally, but I mean, that's just ignoring the community, basically, I feel like. I mean, obviously you can say that they're listening to the community because there's people who don't like stopwatch, but that's only one side of it.
Well, also one thing that I did want to dive into a little bit is, it's been floating around for the past week or 2 or 3. Micker, we talked about it last week, but the hybrid mode, it's like it has the benefit of stopwatch where, the better team will score more points, but you're still going to play out both sides no matter what. It's just we talked about it in the Discord last night, Sam, and you were kind of talking about it a little bit as some sort of middle ground.
I wasn't.
Yeah, you were.
You construed what I said as supporting it.
Okay. Well, I misunderstood you entirely then. I thought you were supporting it. But basically the gist is if you complete on attack, you gain a point. If you don't, you don't gain a point. But then at the end of after 2 teams have attacked, the one with the faster time gains an additional point, so you'd have a 2-1 scoreline. And this only really makes sense in longer sets, best of 3s, best of 5, best of 7s. But it does really start to make sense, I think, once you go to best of 5 or greater. But Sam, I guess I misconstrued you. What do you feel? I guess you don't like it?
I mean, I don't really like it. Like, I still think it's not. I don't know. It's awkward and confusing in a lot of ways when you're like trying to tally up who's winning in the series and stuff like that, or like how teams are going to come back. I mean, obviously people get used to it eventually, but it also like doesn't solve any of the issues with competitive mode, because so is competitive mode just going to be still just stopwatch then? Like, because whoever wins the stopwatch would win basically.
Because it's a best of 1, you're saying.
I mean,
yeah.
I think the part that's the most confusing, or the part that people don't agree upon, whether it's like Blizzard versus most of, I guess, the competitive community, is just how easy it is to understand time, right, and stopwatch, and I think that's where this conflict is going on right now, and I feel like if they just came with a different solution that still accomplished kind of both. So instead of using time,
you shouldn't have to do that, though.
Well, I know, but just hear me out. And this isn't perfectly stopwatch either, like every single second, but they have checkpoints built into these maps, and these checkpoints are made just to add time, right, and add, I guess, more points, right, in terms of a stopwatch type of format. But why not just do points? Right, points is not stopwatch. They might just want to go with something unique, and just not go with stopwatch anymore. That might be some hidden factor. Who knows? But why not just go with a point system? And a point system's really easy to understand. I mean, here's a simple one, and we can come up with the most complex ones. But here's a simple one: you make one checkpoint, you get 200 points. You make the second checkpoint, you get another 200 points, and we just keep tallying them up. And then at the end of a round, you have this many points, and if you finish the round, you get another 500 bonus points or whatever. And then the other team gets to go, and then you can go like that. And you can actually do aggregate points if you want to in a series, just whatever. But it's very straightforward. It's not this weird time system that requires like a UI too.
I mean, but that means you're still tied though if like one team wins in 3 minutes or one team wins in 12 minutes and the next one wins in 12 minutes.
You're tied if you finish the same number of objectives. Yes. But at least it's close. At least it's kind of close to the same amount of progress you guys made.
I mean, that still means that the unsatisfying game that Shayed played would still be a tie. Even wouldn't it doesn't fix any of the issues.
It doesn't. It fixes some. It fixes some of the scenarios, like the one that we're talking about against Slasher's team. It fixes that scenario for sure. Because
the most frustrating thing about this entire situation is this: Blizzard, you are amazing at creating games. Love you for making Overwatch. It's incredible. You do not need to be unique, though, in certain aspects. Look at how every other game works that has been popular and competitive. It's one thing or another. Either in League of Legends, you destroy the enemy nexus, or your nexus gets destroyed and you're done. You lose. The enemy team wins. In CSGO, you either win all the rounds, or you win more rounds than the enemy team because you planted the bomb, or you defused the bomb. It's straightforward. You don't need to do all of these hybrid systems that are confusing for spectators to begin with when you're already worried about spectator issues already. Just do one thing or another. It doesn't have to be a hybrid system. Just do stopwatch. If it doesn't work, change it.
Well,
Things
they're doing the simple system right now.
They are doing a simple system.
You don't like.
Either you win or you lose.
They're doing either you win or you lose, or you tie and go to cost.
This system hasn't been tested yet in competitive. So you know what? By all means, if this system is tested in competitive play, and by competitive I mean high tier, obviously professional play, and it works, and the win rate is exactly like they said it is, where it's there's a 50-50 for everyone, it's fair one way or another, I will shut up. Okay? I will not talk about stopwatch anymore. If this is exactly what you said it was going to be, I will shut up. Okay? If it's not, and it's miserable for the players, fix it. Change it. Try something else, even if you don't want to.
Well,
just do it.
I totally think the next tournament has to try
yeah.
this competitive mode.
Yeah.
Like, I'm looking at you, Ghost of Gamers, or whoever else. Just try it. Like, please. Just please do it.
Well,
actually, that's a good point. We don't even have a way to do it
Because beta's going down.
Well, because beta's going down, but also because you have to queue in competitive mode to actually get this format.
Right, exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyways, it's well. The one thing we do know is they are iterating through things. I
mean, not necessarily. They could set it up like in their own way. You could just fix the lobby.
Yeah.
Well, should be a lobby thing nowadays.
One thing that we know is that they are iterating. This is just like the first iteration, right? We know they plan on change, just trying different things, iterating through it. It's just a matter of just how fast.
But they're not going to do much now because they're going for launch.
That's
like the iteration
how fast are they
going
to do
down?
This?
So.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on. We spent a lot of time.
I mean,
we spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
On this.
I mean, it is it is like the big topic this last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we didn't even touch upon there are a lot of other issues too with competitive mode. They already know about disconnects and all that stuff. They just need to fix all that stuff.
Blizzard needs to understand there's other things too that they want to be unique with that they don't need to be unique with. Like things that work like things that work in other esports work for a reason. Like LCS is as popular as it is because it's like one of the reasons is because it's easy to watch. Like, it's not a hard game to spectate League of Legends. And
yeah, it is if you don't know much about the game. Of
course it is. Of course. You have to be.
I mean, the core basis of the game from a spectator perspective and understanding what's going on is, oh, that team killed the Nexus of the other team. They won.
Well, I mean, you're talking about simple objectives.
I mean, like, what is the issue you have here?
Yeah, I don't.
Well, my issue is that it's like, okay, so one team pushed, and then the other team pushed, but one team had a better time than the other, so the team that has a better time wins. Why is that hard? Everybody can tell time. You can watch a counter hit 0.
It's not hard, but it's not exciting, apparently. Even though I always felt like Stopwatch were just some of the most exciting moments. Like in TF2, we didn't play Stopwatch that much, but Gravel Pit was a map that produced some of the most exciting matches when they were close. And they were close a lot of the time, and they are close a lot of the time in Overwatch.
The cup that I casted on Sunday, it was of course it was Reunited versus My Dog, so it's Tvik's new team. This is a perfect segue because we are supposed to talk about this in just a minute here. But My Dog, brand new team, brand new form roster, played against Reunited, and in a best of 5 set, there were 2 stopwatch games that were decided by 10 seconds or less. One of them was decided by 3 seconds. That is so hype. Nobody will be able to convince me that is a boring game mode. Yeah, it's boring when the games are uneven and the 2 teams, one is a much higher skill than the other, but it's going to be boring either way, no matter what rule set you choose. I think Stopwatch is one of the most exciting possible rule sets. If the games are close, it doesn't get more heart pounding than the payload slowly rolling into its final checkpoint with literally seconds to spare. That was some of the best Overwatch I've had the pleasure of casting. So I definitely
imagine if it was built into the UI, Ben. Imagine if the countdown was you could see the milliseconds and stuff counting down. So
in that game, I think it was like you guys. Was it you that was casting that game?
Mm-hmm.
It was, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't you guys think that there was 10 seconds left and there was actually only 3?
Exactly.
And it was still hype. Like there was that few seconds difference, but it was still as hype as it was when there was even actually less time than you thought there was.
I mean, so when the game first came out, I thought my problem with Stopwatch, I wasn't worried about it being exciting. I was worried about it being fair and balanced and not too random, because one play could determine a fight where you get to push a checkpoint or something like that.
Yeah.
But with the tournament results we've seen, the best teams are winning consistently. So I mean, I think it's just been a very fair game type for competitive play. I think that it's worked out very well overall. Especially on the payload maps, at least, not the CP maps, but.
I mean, no matter
it's just kind of disappointing that Blizzard hasn't, implemented it more in their game or seem to want to give it more of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what game you're playing, whenever a good team's playing a bad team, it's always going to be boring, right? I mean, we're seeing some boring games in the NBA right now, so it's that's always going to happen. When two good teams clash, that's when epic hype stuff. And as long as we have a format that does make it exciting, which Stopwatch does, then that should be good enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing that's annoying with the comp modes. It feels really artificial to build the hype of the overtime. It's artificial because you're trying to make the match more even than it really is for arbitrary reasons, which is horrible it makes it feel like it's like, an exhibition, like fake, WWE wrestling or something,
it's really
and not
close,
an actual
guys.
competition.
I promise, it's really close. Yeah, yeah.
But other games have that same problem. It's like anytime that there's a stomp, just kind of, oh, okay, this team's gonna win.
Yeah, I mean that. Like I said,
Just talk
it's
about
just,
how good they're stomping the other team right now.
we're not allowed to say they're stomping, like caster rules, right? We can't call games early or whatever. But yeah, that happens all the time. That's just normal competition. I mean, that's like when you seed 1 seed versus a 16 seed or something like that. That's supposed to
I don't
happen,
even
right?
necessarily believe that stopwatch would be a hard thing for Blizzard to implement anyways. I mean, though if you look at how the spectator UI has changed over the last like 2 or 3 weeks, it went from looking one way to looking completely different. Like that's a change that took them like a week to make, a week and a half maybe.
They've been
Like
working on the
implementing
spectator
something
stuff
like
for a long
this.
time, like internally. They have other
Yeah.
stuff too that's not released yet. I mean,
Yeah,
it's definitely
this
not like a
didn't
change
happen
that
in a
was like a
week.
week in the
Yeah.
making or something.
This wasn't like
I
a
know, I'm
week,
just saying
you
that
know?
Blizzard has always been really good at pushing out changes really fast. So if it's something that they wanted to try, I don't think that it would actually take them a super long time to try
I
it.
bet they've
Or that
have
they've
tried it
not
at some
already
point.
tried it. Yeah,
Yeah,
or that
I
they've
bet
not
they have
already tried
some
it
kind of like
internally.
really bare bones stopwatch interface they've probably tried. Okay, well, let's talk about. So you mentioned the Maidong Reunited. Why don't we talk about some of the esports stuff, and then we'll talk about some of the news with teams disbanding. Okay,
We
gamer.
didn't even talk about the rank system yet.
Which one?
We didn't talk about the rank system in competitive mode yet.
No.
Did you?
no.
Oh, you want to go
Just
into
move it
that
on,
too?
just move it on,
Let's just
please.
move on to that. I mean, we could talk for days on that. I mean, but okay, let's just talk about sports to recap. Gamers Origin, the Overwatch Cup. You casted that with ZP this past weekend, FishStix, and you mentioned the Maidong Reunited. That was definitely one of the best series I've seen so far in Overwatch. But generally, talk about the 1 hero limit. Why did it work so well?
Frankly, like again, going back to stopwatch first. No, just kidding.
Yeah,
But
no,
in the
man.
finals of the ONOG tournament, we had a game that was decided within 5 seconds, and there were 5 tracers on the reunited side. It didn't stop me from getting just as hyped. So I don't want to draw the direct parallel between one hero limit hype. The reason that I was so hype about this tournament was because of how good the games and how close the games were.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that was directly because of 1 hero limit. That said, 1 hero limit, obviously, we didn't see 2 Winstons, we didn't see 2 Tracers, which teams like Cloud9 have just been doing time and time and time again, basically on most maps in most situations. So it was nice to see a little bit more variety. The one thing that I found kind of surprising is I'm not sure how to frame this, but in a way, it felt like teams were forced to pick more standard compositions because you can't do a 2 Widow, 2 Reinhardt Bastion strategy. You can't do crazy, cheesy, off the wall stuff, which can be very exciting. So you really did see almost every team doing like Reinhardt, Zarya, Lucio, Mercy, Pharah, McCree. Or sometimes the Zarya would be a different DPS character. But it was almost always these really standard lineups on a lot of the maps, including King of the Hill. So it kind of forced teams into a more standard mold. And one of the things that was very clear is right now, Mercy and Lucio were used in just almost every single game. It was just almost every single time. We only saw Zenyatta a handful of times. We only saw Symmetra in very situational positions. So Mercy and Lucio were used every single time. And the one thing that kind of surprised me, and I guess it shouldn't have been a huge surprise, was just it felt like it forced teams into a more standard composition than I was kind of expecting going
Part
into
of that might be because teams haven't practiced with the 1 hero limit, so that's basically just going to be the default mode, right? Like they don't know what works that's not standard in that situation. So that could be one reason for that. Obviously, a standard lineup is pretty easy to do and makes sense in the 1-1-1, the 1 hero limit issue, kind of like what it was in the first beta session, right?
Yeah. And that's the first beta session. I mean, I feel like we were getting a little bit stale too, just from the meta standpoint. That's kind of what I was alluding to before, Ben, is that I don't know how much of this was just like more of a relative thing, just relative to what we have been seeing, and this is like a refreshing, versus this is like the correct answer.
I mean, the support meta is just going to be stale. Period.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's just Blizzard's fault for not designing more support heroes and
that'll change when more characters
ones like Symmetra.
Yeah.
I don't hate the idea of hero limits anymore as much as I used to, just because like I'm just getting so tired. Like I didn't expect it to last this long, and I'm just to the point now where I'm just so tired of seeing it and going against it that I don't hate the idea anymore. But before you implement it into the game completely, give me another support, please. Please.
Well, I mean,
otherwise it's just literally going to be only Lucio Mercy. Like, that's it.
Even if you have other supports, it still might only be Lucio Mercy because the speed boost is so important, especially in the one hero limit meta. I think the speed boost is even more important.
Well, I mean, speed boost is just completely off the wall a problem right now anyways. Speed boost actually needs to be like seriously reworked in some way. And that is way too impactful.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one hero limit will become just more just more accepted maybe as more characters come out, because I think balancing stacking and stuff is going to be very, very difficult. And I was talking to Zan about it. Zan even said it's like crazy difficult and his life would be much easier, but it's not about making his life easier, right? It's about just making the game the best it can. But it'll only get worse and worse when there's more combinations, more, there's 100 heroes. I mean, imagine balancing 100 heroes, guys. Oh my gosh, right? It's already.
I definitely wasn't in favor of a hero limit.
I mean, that's why they don't have just one person doing it in other games. There's like teams of people that do hero balancing. It's not just like poor Zan on his own in a room with the lights off, just rigging his hair. Like,
well, it's not just
the only one doing it.
Yeah, he's not just the only one either.
I know. I'm just saying. Like,
I'm just saying it's.
There's usually like huge teams of people.
I mean, there's not stacking right now in other MOBA games, right? So it's.
Yeah, but it's different though, because you can't pick the same heroes on different teams either. Like,
right, but I'm just saying
there's a whole other
balancing
strategy to doing that.
Right, but even balancing in those games can be difficult, even just with those parameters. So imagine if it was just free and open, you could do whatever the heck you want. It'd be insane. Like they'd have to be nerfing and changing tens of characters every single week. It would be crazy. All right.
I also just like the idea of having 40, 50, 60 plus heroes.
That'd be awesome.
I think that also makes hero limit even more interesting in that case, because you can still swap a lot. You can still try crazy, cheesy stuff if we have the variety of heroes. But, I think actually Maker said it in the Overwatch Discord last night pretty well. One hero limit does kind of spur this stale stuff because Lucio and Mercy are almost a must-have, because McCree is almost a must-have, because Reinhardt is almost a must-have. You really only have like two free like flex heroes that you swap around. Sometimes it's Widowmaker, sometimes it's Ferret, sometimes it's Genji, sometimes it's Tracer. But the rest, like right now at least in the meta, just feel very, very solid. So
basically what it was in the first beta session.
Yeah. Exactly,
would a class limit be worse than a hero limit? Like a 2-hero class limit?
And that would just be weird because like the class designations are
they're just
kind
arbitrary.
of awkward.
They're arbitrary in some ways.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would mean the difference between running like 2 soldiers, 2 tracers, 2 Lucios. You'd only be able to run 2 of those offensive heroes.
I mean, it's something you could try, but I feel like sometimes the classes are...
At least that doesn't limit you support-wise. Like, if you need to run 2 Lucios because you just need that extra healing output, then it wouldn't necessarily...
That'd be really awkward because, like, 3 DPS comps are very staple on a lot of maps, depending on the maps and stuff, and, like, so that would just be weird, like, not being able to do that. Then you'd have to be forced to... I don't know, it would be awkward.
It's okay.
I mean, I agree it would be awkward, but there's always, like...
It would open more opportunities to run the defense heroes like Hanzo and Bastion, right, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just gives more heroes, I guess, opportunity to shine, which Blizzard wants anyways.
Well, we want variety.
So,
I mean, we
I don't
do
know.
want to see
Yeah.
the optimum. I think game play is when we see a lot of different characters, not just the same ones over and
Yeah.
over again. So,
I mean, I will say I was totally against a hero limit at the start of the beta, but now I'm
I think
more in
we're
favor
all-
of it than I was back then.
We
So
I
all
think
you know, I
everybody's
feel-
leaning towards that. That's just because we've seen like meta now multiple times.
Part of the
where
problem
stacking
in
is
Overwatch-
an issue.
Part of the problem is that there's a lot of heroes that are kind of binary, where it's like if
Yeah,
you have this
right.
hero and then like Widow versus Widow, where Widow kills their Widow, you basically have free reign to do whatever you want, unless they happen to have like a Winston or Diva. But even then, you can kind of beat them or something. So there's a lot of heroes like that where it's kind of binary, where you get the one pick, and if you have stacking, it makes it even like way too punishing in those cases.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, we've talked about meta
Yes.
for
Let's talk.
now for about an hour. Let's talk about some news. And again, guys, I said it before, but just want to reemphasize, My Dong, they formed
Yep.
last week, and I talked to a couple of their players. They hadn't even really had time to scrim against any top teams. They formed last week, and they took very narrow, but they took a win over Reunited, which is pretty much unarguably the best team in Europe right now. So Tavik and Mendo proving that it wasn't just a fluke with IDDQD, and this new team looking incredibly strong. I was so impressed with AKM. I was really impressed with the Mercy play we saw. Just like everyone just played so solid on that team. So my dog, I've also, Raffle Gator was saying in his stream yesterday, so I guess I'm allowed to say it here. They're going to be announcing a sponsor soon, so we won't have to call them out as my dog forever.
I was gonna say if they have a
That's
sponsor,
shocking considering what their name is.
and if they were called My Dog and they had a sponsor, it could still use My Dog. I gotta bow down to them because that's like that would be amazing.
My Dong sponsored by Trojan.
Yeah,
oh
like
my god,
Playboy or something.
Awesome, that would be amazing.
I mean,
So,
I just
I
feel
don't know.
bad for whoever the sponsor is, because if they have to write an announcement article saying that this sponsor just picked up my dong, like, get me out.
Anyway,
Yeah.
they're probably looking to be the best team in the scene again. So I was super impressed, and I thought that, I was expecting them to do well, but I did not think they were going to beat Reunited. So
Yeah,
pretty epic.
it was definitely epic. I mean, it was looking like United was going to
they
win,
definitely
and then
have
they came back,
spent
right? So
a lot of time playing together. I don't think it's fair to say, like, oh, they're a super new team. Like, Tivik and Mendo, the amount of time that they scrimmed together when they were on IDDQD makes up for a lot. Like, that's two people on your team.
Sure.
Not to mention, Reinforce, they all play on the same server. I'm sure they've been in games together and, like, solo queue and whatever. It's not like they don't know each other's play styles and hero pools. And
after 1 week,
do you
though,
feel like the
it's
game
like
is
1 week.
too
I mean,
centric around the DPS players because they have like Tivik and Mendo coming in and they're able to win with those guys? They're basically the core of two different best teams. It doesn't necessarily matter who's around them, maybe.
Perhaps. Not really sure.
hasn't it always been very deep centric? I mean, I feel like
I would say so, but
Yeah,
maybe other people feel differently. I don't know. I mean, it feels to me like it's really hard to notice when some of the other roles are playing very well. Like you might notice when they make a big mistake,
right.
but are
That's
they
exactly.
like if they're doing their job, can they impact the match like positively much more? I mean, whereas obviously a DPS player can always make like an amazing play or something and hit a couple headshots or something like that. So I don't know.
Well, I think it always depends
Interesting point.
on the DPS taking people out, right? Because if that doesn't happen, then just the sustaining doesn't
Right,
have
and
as much
especially-
impact. Yeah, so
Especially now, like after some of this, nerfs to Lucia's damage and
right.
maybe Zenyatta nerfs and stuff. Like if your DPS die, you have even less of a chance to have like a fighting chance to win the fight, basically.
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to say that they're like, oh, this new team, because they've
I don't
definitely
know.
played
It's three
together.
Swedes and three
It's
Frenchies.
still a big.
I don't know. It's pretty
still,
awesome.
It's still great. I mean, it's still a great result after 1 week. I mean, come on. I mean, even if they have played together, those two guys have played together a ton, and even those guys have played a little bit together. I still think it's pretty impressive that they beat a team that's been playing together for a long time now in Reunited. You said
Regardless, they're here to stay, and apparently they're going to announce a sponsor in like the next couple of days or week or something.
okay, that's gonna be awesome. Oh, you have a new team here that did pretty good sooner or late.
Yeah. I actually had a chance to cast them against my dong as we casted my dong the whole way through the tournament. And this team, sooner or late, is it's actually got some people I know from Dirty Bomb, so I was excited to see them play, and they played way better than I thought they were going to play. So not a whole lot to say here, just more evidence that the European scene not only has a number of teams really at the highest echelon, but one rung below, there's a whole pack of other teams as well. So that was really encouraging to see. So shout outs to Outsider, who I know from the Dirty Bomb space, and yeah, shout outs to that team.
All right, so enough EU talk. Let's talk NA. So we're talking about some teams disbanding here, and
Rip Envious.
Yeah, and one Team Envious they were one of the best NA teams that we've had since the beginning of beta. So this was actually pretty big news. I know, Ben, you mentioned it on during the tournament, right? And it was kind of at the same time it was on Reddit, so it was pretty big deal, given that a lot of these players we know like very, very well, just based on all the events they've won and just placed very highly in. All right, what happened here, guys? What are you guys hearing behind the scenes? I mean, Tailspin posted something, but it's kind of crazy if you get into a position where you're looking for 2 players that these teams might disband. That's kind of scary.
It's rough, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I've personally known members of this team for years and years and years and years, and obviously, if you've been following the competitive scene since the first phase of the beta, Hubris were the IDDQD of the first phase of the beta. They were entirely undefeated except for the first tournament they ever played in. They were incredibly dominant. A really interesting team that has history in multiple different games. So this one hurts, man. This one sucks. I hate to see it, but at the same time, I can also see it from their point of view. But you're right, Chris. There is an interesting trend here where teams, if they don't succeed for 2-3 weeks in a row, they just explode. Yeah. This is happening time and time again.
And part of the issue isn't just that, though. Like, I mean, Ross quit. Like, he's quitting the game, period. It's not just
there was a domino effect before results. That, though. So, like, this is the domino effect line of what happened to Envious. It pretty much started, like, a week or so before they cut Esper. They were having issues beating the Europeans. They cut Esper. Then they started doing tryouts after they swapped positions around. I think Stoop went to DPS, Ras went to support, a couple other things. Cool Matt kind of went off of strictly DPS to like kind of off tank, other things. And they started doing tryouts. They did Buds and Taimu. Taimu left during the ONOG tournament to do the IDDQD switch for that weekend. And prior to that, about 2 months ago, Ras had received some news that basically completely demotivated him to play the game at all. And then on top of adding to that with the issues of not being able to find a 6th member that they liked playing with or that they felt gelled well with the team, Ras just decided to quit the game. And so that kind of resulted in the team disbanding. They were already having troubles finding a 6th, then Ras quits. It's like, okay, now they are only 4. Yeah. So what do you even do at that point other than just disband? Plus, members of the team, mainly Cool Matt and Tailspin, were receiving offers of joining other teams. So
this is kind of interesting because we don't see, I guess, this type of thing in other esports where, it's almost like the sponsors just kind of loom in the background. Like Team Envious. Normally, right? If you're Team Envious, like you're in another esport. I mean, if two people drop, the other team remains, right? And the team's like heavily, involved in trying to fill it. Yeah, so I'm curious.
This is like a new,
right? Yeah,
it's new. It's nascent. Like, you don't even know if the people you're playing with are necessarily going to be that great. Like, a couple months down the line or something, when there's more talent in the game, or when their motivation changes quickly, or something like that. And like, there's no big tournaments to play in. There's no big leagues that promote stability. I mean, you see roster swapping after every single event in Counter-Strike or Dota or something when there's no limits on doing that, but now there's more impetus to do that in those scenes because there's more stability, so that doesn't happen. But that doesn't exist in Overwatch yet because there's no formal structure basically for competition. There's no LAN events. It's still too early. So I mean, even with those contracts, it's just That's going to happen because it's just so early basically. Like
I think it helps that like Hastro is legitimately one of the most chill organization owners I've ever met in my entire life.
He's a good guy.
And I think he kind of just trusts, even in CSGO a lot, I think he trusts his team to make the right decisions roster-wise and trust their intuition and who they want to play with and who fits with the team and stuff like that. So I think a lot of it had to also do with the fact that he trusted them to, make the right decisions on who they wanted to play with and who would help them succeed. And in the end, I think just there's a lack of people in the beta pool, and there's only so much that you can do with what you're given, and they just weren't comfortable with anyone. So
all right, well,
shit happens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, why don't we take one quick question and we'll wrap up. So Pillowkeeper asked on Twitter if you noticed stress test weekend had a significant boost in viewership.
Yes,
I think
I
you
did.
mentioned that too, right? FishStix during the cast, that there were just more people watching. What do you think Twitch viewership will be on launch?
So
I'm pretty excited.
One of the functions I have at Twitch is I actually predict viewership for events internally for our engineering teams. I don't know. It's really, really hard to say, but this weekend was super encouraging because the Gamers Origin Cup, I didn't even hear about it until the day before. Nobody knew about it. Nobody posted it on Reddit. Nobody. It wasn't on the Twitch front page. Like, no one was tweeting about it. I didn't do my usual like Discord advertising. Yet it still got 4,000 viewers. The Overkill.gg league has been doing really well this week, even though all the games last night were kind of shit. It still got over 4,000 viewers again. So the fact that the stress test weekend has brought, I would say, a fresh crop of people into the competitive fold is really, really encouraging. And can only imagine, like they said, 7-8 million people signed up for beta access.
Yeah.
So if even a quarter of those people actually get in during open beta weekend and play, that's going to be millions. If the game sells millions, we're going to have many millions of people playing this game when it comes out. So I think viewership is going to grow by probably right off the bat. I think the first tournaments are going to be hitting 10K. I do. I think it's going to be about 3 times what we're seeing right now, at least.
I thought it was interesting because being around the industry, like a lot of people are kind of worried about Overwatch because the viewership hasn't really been that high in the beta, and it hasn't been like what they kind of expect, I guess, for a game like this. Like I was actually at MLG 2 weeks ago at the major. And I talked to one of your Twitch guys, Cody Connors, and he said he was worried about it because the viewership was kind of low, but he didn't really know how many people were actually in the beta, and how closed it really was. And I think it was, pretty closed, and I think that makes a huge difference in this case. So I think that there's, pretty big opportunity for the viewership to jump up. I mean, the big question is just going to be how many people are actually going to pay to buy the game, at launch versus playing the open beta or, sign up for the open beta. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I think we have an iteration.
Go ahead,
Shay. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it just basically comes down to what we've kind of known all along, which was people don't tend to want to watch a game that they can't play. So if everyone has access to the game, whether it's through paid or whatever, I think we can expect to see a lot more viewership coming from that. So,
and I think
not everyone,
it's important
I guess, but
to have a frame of reference as well. You guys might know Kevin Shamptu. He was big into StarCraft and then big into the Heroes of the Storm scene. And he just started working at Twitch. So I've been chatting with him about the tournaments and stuff. And he was in a similar position to me where he was organizing early tournaments for Heroes of the Storm. And those tournaments didn't get even close to the amount of interest in terms of viewership. There weren't even close to as many people investing in tournaments at the time. And maybe that's just because esports has changed. But I think the hype behind this game has already proven that like the momentum we have right now is a lot more than other games had in beta. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, this game is going to be, just talking non-competitive, this game's going to be in the running for Game of the Year. So, I mean, if you have a Game of the Year mixed with like esports, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people playing it, right? And I think we have an iteration this open beta week, just that week. And there's going to be some events going on during that week too. So we'll get a chance to even just see what the viewership's like for that. I mean, we'll probably see like 10x, 15x the amount of people playing the game during that week, just even compared to right now. So, launch will be even on top of that, exponentially on top of that. So, yeah, I think 10K might even be conservative. I'm
trying to keep my expectations tempered here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I don't know. I think it's safe to say that things should go pretty well regardless for the first week, at least anyways.
Yeah.
I think the first week will probably be overhyped because you're gonna have the variety streamers just all over it for like a couple
Yeah, but
days.
that's artificial. Like that's not.
It'll be boosted for a little
Yeah,
while, but after
that's.
it dies down, we'll kind of I think we'll get to see
It's hard to call it
like a decent
artificial when
turnout.
JP's playing Overwatch like 5 days a week on stream, and
No, JP is,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
like,
mean, there's
I mean,
more.
Lyric doesn't
Yeah.
stream it all the time, and like Summit doesn't stream it all the time. I mean, these are just like, just whatever day it happens that they're streaming it, then the numbers go up, right? But that's not dependent. That's not like Kripparrian streaming Hearthstone. Like that's not the same, right? So that's kind of what I mean by artificial. Like, yeah, JP
Sure.
like loves the
I
game,
gotcha.
so like you know what I mean by that. Yeah, so we'll have to see like when it normalizes a little bit. Like what will be cool is like 2 weeks after the launch. Like what does it look like after that? And then we'll get a good picture of it. And the first event, regardless of what's going on there, the first event will just tell us everything, right? So that's going to be awesome. We'll see who gets that first event after launch. It's going to be like a race for that, I'm sure.
Oh God, it's gonna be insane.
It is going to be pretty crazy.
Holy shit.
It's going to be an exciting time. But why don't we wrap up, Ben? I know you're on a just like a tight schedule here. So Sam, oPlaiD or oPlaiD. I keep saying played. I don't know why, but oPlaiD. Thanks for appearing. You're our first guest. So you're the first person. No, you're second person that's appeared twice now. So I really appreciate your insight. Is always very, very thoughtful and very just you're a writer, so you have definitely this great perspective on everything. So always great to have a just discussion with you in terms of everything.
Always a pleasure to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Any shout outs you want to do? Shout outs you want to do before you take off?
Not really. Shout out to the Daily Dot, I guess.
Yeah.
That's where I write. I work there. You should go there, check it out, read the articles.
Read
Got a
his
big
articles.
one up about
He
the new
writes-
player resources center that people are trying to put together to
Oh,
Yeah.
help support
Saw that
players
this
in
morning.
esports.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh man, yeah, we totally need that. Holy crap. Shayed, how about you? Shout outs.
Shout outs to Luminosity, my team. We have a game versus C9 tonight again. So hopefully that goes well. The guys have been they were up all night.
They played great
Prepping
last
for that,
time. So
They did well. It's a little rough. We need more practice. There isn't a whole lot of NA teams to scrim right now, but yeah, hopefully we do well with that. So shout outs to Luminosity, all our sponsors. Shout outs to my stream and my subs. They're in chat every week. They watch the show or they watch the VOD, so I love them. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's it.
awesome, Ben.
Man, the NA scene is kind of crazy right now. We've really only got Cloud9. I'm hoping to see that the Envious guys spread out and join different teams, because right now is Cloud9 is heads and shoulders above everyone else, and I really want to see some competition. So obviously LG is doing pretty well too, but we need to see some more teams pop up in the NA scene. So I do hope that everyone finds a home soon, and looking forward to seeing those teams formed up and play.
Well, homes
other than that-
on NA teams, you mean, right?
On NA teams, yes,
NA
on NA
teams.
teams, please, guys.
Right.
Yeah, so make sure to watch your daily dose of competitive Overwatch. The Overkill GG League is still going by Gosu Gamers, so watch that on the Gosu Gamers Twitch channel. I don't know if they're broadcasting today or not, but
I think they are,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
5 p.m. PST.
Yeah. 5 p.m. PST,
Yeah,
and then
get
tomorrow
the
too.
games in while you can, guys.
Yeah.
It would be so sad when there's no Overwatch left to play, man. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter if you want to know more about what I'm up to. Always doing something here in the competitive Overwatch space.
Yeah, and that's at FishStix, and actually the Twitters are at Shayed OW, right? And at oPlaiD, I believe, right? Sam?
Yep.
That's your Twitter? Yeah. So follow these guys too on Twitter, and you can just, I guess keep track of what they're up to. And yeah, my shout out, shout out to the three of you guys for doing the show. It's always a lot of fun. Next week, with the beta coming down, we'll still have the show next week, guys. We'll just do like a beta recap and maybe continue our talk on competitive mode. This is only part one, I guess. And we'll see what we do the following week, just because, again, the schedule for the show, I don't think it makes sense to continue the show if there's nothing to talk about, really. But who knows? We might decide to. Well, I'll definitely keep you guys posted on that. VODs will be on youtube.com/ChanManV shortly after, sometime tonight. So check that out if you can. And that's going to be it for the overview. So for oPlaiD, Shayed, FishStix, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next time. Later.
Bye.